All right, welcome back, everyone. And today I've got a special kind of Father's Day segment here. I've got a gentleman on the line that I met in a men's private Facebook group called Order of Man. It's got, I think, tens of thousands of men in there from all over the world that share just men stuff, what they're going through. It's been a great resource, and I've connected with a number of really powerful men just sharing themselves. I've talked to a bunch on the podcast in the past about the power of being part of men's groups for men or women's groups for women. And I've got a gentleman here named Andrew O'Brien, who there's hundreds of posts in there per week, but this one really, really stood out to me. And I'm actually going to bring it up and read it out here to kind of pre-frame our conversation. And this is things that you don't really see people normally post on Facebook, but it really caught my eye because of the authenticity, the vulnerability, and just the realness of this gentleman's life experience. And I'm going to go ahead and read it out, then bring him out here. So his name is Andrew O'Brien. He made this post this past week, and I'm just going to read it out, and then we're going to get started here. So it says, prostitution, war, suicide, and murder. These are the four major hurdles I experienced in my life by the age of 23. I'm getting ready to embark on a journey of inner transformation. I'm calling myself out. I don't play victim, quote unquote, to my experiences. However, I have allowed these life experiences to jade me and turn me into a man I am not proud of. I was raised by a prostitute who later became known as the famous murderer in the media called the Black Widow of Texas. I had to make the hard decision to testify against my mother in court for murder after she asked me to frame someone else for the murder she committed. I never planned on saying anything until she later tried to convince others that my brother was responsible. Wow. I've been deployed to Iraq. I've attempted to take my own life at one point. I've spent the last 31 years of living trying to please everyone else, trying to make everyone else happy, trying to be what I thought everyone wanted me to be. I would become a chameleon to my environment just to try to earn love that I have craved since childhood. Recently, I lost my unborn son, and it sparked something inside of me. I have two children that are in my life, but I've spent the majority of their life away working, trying to build an empire in my own business. As soon as I noticed this, I moved my family out of the city onto an 18-acre homestead in Texas. I'm now going through my own journey of self-realization and self-transformation. I'm spending however long it takes to learn about myself, to overcome the ghosts of my past, to figure out what it actually takes to make me happy. I know nothing about myself. To be honest, I'm scared. To be fully transparent, if things don't change, I know that this life would be a lot sooner, that this life would end a lot sooner than it needs to be. As a man, I have children that need me. I'm not teaching these children how to live if I don't take care of myself first. It's now time for me to be selfish so that I can become everything I'm supposed to be and the father they deserve. So being a week away from Father's Day, that's a pretty powerful message, my man. And Andrew Bryan, I just want to thank you for sharing that and welcome you to the show. And come on out and just give a little background about, who you are, your story, and really where you're at in your journey, which sounds like it's been quite the intense one, my friend.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on here. So a little bit about, the backstory. Obviously, they've heard it by now, but, what is important to understand is that I've spent a lot of time angry, frustrated, filled with testosterone and pumped up and, more importantly, numb, right? I didn't allow people the opportunity to hurt me. I stopped loving. I stopped caring about being loved. I had craved love for so long, but I didn't realize I was also deflecting it because I didn't want, because in my mind, the consequences of love were always so negative that I just didn't want it at all. And as I've gotten older, as time has gone on, as experiences have increased, all I've realized is that now all I want is to find inner peace. It's to stop being so angry all the time, and really learn to accept love and intimacy from women, which I'm not good at. I've never had a problem with interacting with women is the most professional way I can say it, but it never really allowed love or intimacy in my life. And that is something that I'm working on changing.
Got it. Well, that takes a big man to admit that. And I mean, your story, just hearing the glimpse of it there, is just pretty much from being a child, you were just faced with this intense trauma around the person that you're supposed to care about the most, or who's supposed to care for you the most, and then kind of asks you to turn on, it sounds like your brother. And I could only imagine what that would have been like. You were how old at that time about?
About that time is 2011, so I was about 23.
23, okay. So that's just when you're kind of starting to figure things out and kind of become independent, and to have that as a life experience, I can only imagine. How did things turn out after that? Like, what was the sentencing, and what was the whole result of that horrific situation? Seriously.
Yeah, so it was happening in October of 2011. The trial happened in October of 2014, so it happened 3 years later. She was originally given a plea deal for 5 years because they didn't have enough evidence. Long story short is she ended up not taking the plea deal. I testified against her in court, and she was found guilty for murder and sentenced to 60 years in prison.
60. Wow. Wow. And
60 years.
what's your relationship been with her like since then? Have you been to the prison to visit, or what? Are you guys on talking terms, or is it kind of, what does that look like?
I went to go visit her once in 2015 to try and forgive her, and I went and saw her, but I was too scared to say what I wanted to say. I was always scared to confront her about my issues. So actually, the exciting thing is I'm going on June 26th. I am walking from Austin, Texas, to her prison, which is in Gatesville, which is over 100 miles away. And I'm going to forgive her. And so it's a journey I'm actually going to do. I'm going to walk for about 3 days. Wow. And it'll take me about 3 days walking to get there. And I'm going to go forgive her for everything. I'm doing a walk because I want to have the time to process it, to figure out what it's like, to really process everything before I get there.
Wow. That's quite the journey. That's going to be, a spiritual journey, and hopefully one that brings a lot of healing and forgiveness. Wow, man, that's I think that's the right move, though, man. Like, I think that, there's a saying that forgiving someone isn't for them, it's for yourself. Like it really, it obviously it'll make her day, but it'll probably also make your life. Like, to give you that completion and ability to just move on in a way that is probably gives you a bit of closure coming from that as well. I can only imagine being in that situation. I can't even imagine it, actually, to be honest with you, but it's something that I don't think many people in this world can relate to what you're going through with that. But I think that what you're doing, was there like something that triggered you to say that, okay, now I've got to kind of turn everything in my life on pause, or change it to go move to this acreage with your boys and kind of really start doing the deep work on yourself? Was there something that kind of triggered that, or has this been kind of like a gradual thing, saying, okay, I really got to start addressing myself?
It was the death of Declan. So Declan is my unborn son that was inside of my wife. We found out at 14 weeks that he had been dead for a week inside of my wife. And when we learned all this, it was a life awakening thing, right? It was kind of like, here's what I've learned throughout every traumatic experience in my life. What I've learned is, if I don't put worth behind it, I will end up depressed in a dark room for the rest of my life. What I mean is that if I allow my son Declan to die and nothing in my life to change positively from that, I feel like he died for no reason, right? If I allow my childhood to just impact me negatively for the rest of my life, I feel like this entire life is worthless. Like, what is the point of even being here? So I have to put worth behind every negative experience. That's the way I cope with the hard times, is to put worth behind it, whether that's going to impact my life, my children's life, a stranger's life. I always have to find a way to put worth behind it. So when I lost Declan, I realized that I wasn't spending enough time with my kids. I was working too much. I didn't really have a relationship in my family. I mean, they love me. I love my kids. I kiss them every day, hug them every day, tell them I love them every day. but I didn't have quality time to actually bond with them. And so it was in that moment that I realized if I had to lose my son, I'm going to make his death mean something, which means I'm going to change something about my life. And ever since then, the relationship I've had with my children has only strengthened because of this whole situation.
You know, that just reminds me of a conversation I was having yesterday. A guy I know, I didn't know this about him, but he said that he had a twin brother who died when he was 17. And it really kind of impacted me because both my parents are twins. My father has a twin sister. My mother had a twin sister as well who died at birth. And so I asked him, I said, you know, like that, how did that affect you being 17 and losing a twin brother? And he says, you know, like, to be honest with you, it was obviously tragic and traumatic, but in some way it was kind of the best thing that ever happened to me because it made me start living my life in a way that really made me realize that life is precious, life is short. I've got to make the most of this life. I started loving my family more. I started really prioritizing things in my life, and it just made me the person that I am today and woke me up kind of from the rat race that I was in. And I kind of said something that I'll say to you too, like, it's kind of, you know, blessings come in the most surprising ways sometimes of hurt and you know, you never really know what the full story is going to be from a tragic event. Not saying that what happened with you and your son Deacon was a blessing, but I think what you're doing is turning it into that in some way to make you realize that there's some things that needed to change and improve. So I commend you for having that perception on such a hard thing. And I've talked openly on this podcast before about two pretty heavy situations I've gone through that doesn't really get spoken about quite a lot for men. Is one, the pain and emotional trauma that not only women go through in abortion, but men also go through with the loss of a child. And I unfortunately experienced that a couple of years ago with an abortion in a relationship that I was in. And having a child die either through medical complications or a choice, it rocks people to the core. It is a death of a family member. It doesn't matter if they've been on this earth a day, a year, a decade. It's still someone that is part of your family. And I think, yeah, there's a lot of support groups out there. Are you familiar with Rachel's Vineyard? Rachel's Vineyard. It's for unborn. It's a therapy. It's a therapy program for unborn children, either mostly through abortion or through medical complications before the pregnancy is complete. I went there with my my partner at the time, and it was a weekend retreat, and it was like one of the most healing experiences I've ever gone through. So for anybody that's going through something like that, I highly recommend taking a look at Rachel's Vineyard. They have them all over the world, and it's a great organization to help people come together and grieve and have closure of their lost ones. So, but anyway, yeah.
I'm gonna have to tell my wife about that.
Yeah, Rachel's Vineyard. Yeah. I can send you. I'll have the link actually below the show notes if people want to take a look at the website. But yeah, so I can only imagine the relationship with your wife and her going through the hurt and the loss as well. Like, that's not an easy thing for man or woman to experience. So it's really good that you guys made the decision to kind of start, you know, taking the time to take care of yourselves going through that. And what have you experienced so far? Like, when was that? Like, when did you move out to this new location, and how far along are you in the process of this self-discovery mission that you're on?
Yeah, this all happened April 1st. So April 1st was when we found out that it was March 31st. We found out that he was no longer alive. April 1st, we had to go in for the surgery to get him removed. So it all began April 1st. We moved out here. We were supposed to move to this place on April 1st. And so we moved out here into this 18-acre homestead out of the country, slowed down, you know, really enjoyed my relationship with my children has only strengthened since then. I get a lot more time with them. We've built things on the property together. We feed the animals together. We, you know, my son loves mowing the grass with me on the riding lawnmower. I mean, we get to do things. I spent so much time behind a computer for 16 to 18 to even sometimes 32 hours straight, because I was trying to hustle and grind and build my empire and make a bunch of money, and the money was coming in, but the relationships were dwindling. I just realized that money, I always use money to try to fill that void in my life, right? Because I always grew up so broke. I just never wanted to be broke. And I've been really successful at points in my life, not billions, but I've been successful. I've had really good money and was still miserable. And so I really learned that it wasn't the money that I needed. It was a stronger relationship with my children. That's only gotten better since then.
Yeah, it's interesting. People think that they can solve everything if they just make more money, and it's not really the key to happiness. I think what you said hits the nail on the head. It's spending time with loved ones. It's taking care of your health, your mental health, physical health, and just being in a space where you just feel good and you feel okay. It's not about that I think that we're very guilty as a society these days to just like put so much priority and significance on like the hustle grind game. You see guys like Gary Vee, and nothing wrong with that. It's important to make a difference in the world and to provide for you and your family and whatever the case may be. But it's not, my perspective is, maybe it's just getting older, but it's like, hey, you don't get to take any of these toys or things with you after you die. Like what you want to be building is kind of a legacy that can of moral virtues that can be passed on through generations of your family. And coming up to Father's Day, it's always a very, very hard time for me because I was a young father. My son was born when I was like 23 years old, and I went through the family court system for about 10 years and didn't come out on the good side of it. And I've been basically separated from my son, who lives in California, for the last number of years. And I reach out all the time to try and get on a Skype call again, like we always used to do, or have another visit, and just like, it's just denied. And I think there's a lot of fathers out there and mothers that holidays like this are really, really hard. I did an episode a while back about the whole family court system and really how unjust it is. And I think coming up with holidays like this, hopefully your story gives people inspiration that, family really does come first and should come first, regardless of people's past. You can always resolve conflict and issues. And I think what you're doing with your mother is a great testimony of that. Like someone that's put you through so much probably mental and emotional hell and trauma that you still are becoming the bigger man to go out there on your journey to forgive her. And like I said, it's not just for her, it's also for yourself. So I hope that this is kind of an inspiration for people to kind of put the past in the past, whatever that may be, with a family member. Maybe if it's a child that hasn't talked to their father or their mother for a while, like you said, life is short, and the good things in life don't last forever, and that's relationships, and people unfortunately expire, and you want to make those amends before it's too late. So I really hope that connection with your mother goes well. What's your relationship with your brother or your father? Is it like a pretty tight, or has it been strained as well through all of this?
Well, a couple things is I'm forgiving my mother, not for her. I'm doing that for myself. I will not maintain a relationship with her because of the extremes of what happened, but I'm not going to hate her anymore. Right. Yeah. So I have to learn not to hate her anymore. But speaking of the situation with your son, right? My father wasn't around when I was younger, because he had my brother when he was 19 and my brother when he was 17 and me when he was 19. Right. And so he wasn't around much as children. And I used to be so mad about that. But when I turned 19, he reached out and apologized to me for not being around. And I had to be man enough to accept that apology and forgive him, because I had to think back to myself of what kind of father would I have been at 17 years old? What kind of father would I have been at 19 years old? Right. At 19, I was doing drugs. So it was, I had to learn to grow up. I had to learn to accept apologies, forgive people and move forward. If they wanted to maintain a relationship with me, and my father did something my mother never did, and he took responsibility for his own actions, and he apologized to me for what he did. Instead of blaming the world or blaming someone else or blaming my mom, he took responsibility for it. And it meant a lot to see someone do that finally. So I accepted that. My brother, I don't talk to anymore. We had a falling out. Part of my journey is going to be reconnecting with him and trying again. I've tried numerous times, but I don't think we ever stop trying, right? I'm sure you've never stopped trying with your son. I never stopped trying with my brother. We will continue to try until the day that we die to reconnect and rekindle those relationships.
Yeah, that's good. And are you still in contact with your father, or was that just kind of like a reconnection that kind of happened and then kind of dwindled, or I'm just curious.
Oh no, we have a relationship now. It's obviously not as strong as your average father-son relationship, yeah, but we do have a relationship, and he's a great, grandparent to my kids. Nice. He does really good with them, and I live probably about 2 hours away from him.
Nice. Well, that's great. That's good to hear. And like that's the thing. Like life is long. Like there's a lot of scenes to this play of life. And for those people listening, like if you're not in the best scene of your life right now, like scenes can change, things can change, and you never really know how things are going to end up. I'm curious to kind of pivot now. What was being in Iraq like and serving? Like that's something that, I mean, I've seen a lot of movies about war, but I've never served in one. So I can only imagine how intense and just demanding mentally and physically and emotionally, like going away to war was. Like, how was that whole experience? How long were you there? Anything that you want to share from that whole adventure?
Yeah, that was actually the least extreme of all my life circumstances, believe it or not. Wow. So
that's a lot right.
Well, it's because a lot of people think about the movies, right? When they think about Iraq or Afghanistan and the troops deployed over there, they think about movies. And my deployment was not like any movie you've ever seen. There wasn't a lot of combat. I may have had a couple of bullets fly by my head a few times. I had an IED, a bomb blow up behind my vehicle once. But outside of that, I had a friend that got shot about 7 times, but I wasn't home. I was back home on mid-tour leave, which is like your 2-week vacation in war that you do in the middle of your deployment. So I wasn't even there to experience that one. I saw a few things, but it was never action. I never killed anyone. I never had any of the experiences. I went out there from 2008 to 2009. And so that at that point in the war, everything was slowing down. It's not like, being out there in 2001 when it all first started.
Right. Yeah, I guess I laugh because it's kind of like your life was more of a war leading up to going to the war. Like after going through what you went through, you're like, oh, I got this war, Iraq, and that's no problem after everything I've been through. You're like, but yeah, well, I'm glad that, it wasn't as hectic as what it could have been. So yeah, you mentioned earlier about the work that you do. If you want to share with people what you're working on, I've taken a look at it, and it seems like you're offering a great service to help people get a lot of media exposure. So I don't know if you want to share about that.
Yeah.
It sounds like something that might be able to be applicable.
So we own a PR company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we own a PR company, and the reason I got into PR is because I've shared this story that I'm sharing with you many times for years and years and years. And I gotten to speak at the White House before. I've traveled the world and spoke on stages on military bases across the world, from Japan and South Korea and all over the United States. And I've gotten a lot of awards for my work. And all of that happened because of media exposure. So the media helped spread my story of overcoming suicide as a United States military veteran. Wow. And them sharing my story landed me speaking engagements, which landed me more speaking engagements, which landed me a 3-year career traveling the world and making good money and impacting many people's lives. And after doing that, I realized how powerful PR could be. So that's why we jumped into a PR company. And I've built a 7-figure PR company its first year and then crashed and burned it. So that was another great experience in my life. And I recouped from that, right? I took a year off, learned a lot, restarted a PR company again. And now we've launched a software which allows you to send automated pitches to the media. So when you find a good reporter that you know would be interested in your story, you answer a few questions about them, press submit, and it generates the entire pitch for you to email out to the media contact. And the whole purpose of this is to help more people spread their message, right? Because PR firms cost about $20,000 a month. But there are so many people in this world that have such a positive story to tell and such an impact that they can make but they don't have $20,000 a month to spend on a PR company. Yeah. So our goal was to help people spread their story.
Wow, that's so awesome, man. And just the fact that you were able to go through that process yourself and then kind of probably reverse engineer it to offer to others. I'm just thinking right now, I know some groups of people that would be very, very interested in what you offer. I'll connect you with them offline here. That's awesome. And so traveling around the world as a speaker, you know, you said you went to Japan and South Korea. I that's actually where I live here. I'm based in South Korea. So yeah, I know they've got a big military presence here. And yeah, it's cool that you can go on and make an impact and really inspire a lot of these soldiers and people in the doing services. And I think that suicide is something that, you know, so many people struggle with, and just to be able to come out and share your story. What was it that kind of made you change from that? Is that what you're going through now, like your self journey, or was it something that happened a while back where you just kind of said, I'm done with this scene of life and wanting to end it?
Yeah, it was, you know, I attempted suicide in 2010. So it was before the whole murder situation and all of that happened. Right. So it all took place. It was after it was a situation with a girl, right? I wasn't even in love with her, but I found her. She cheated on me. I caught her in the tent with one of my buddies when we were out camping, whole situation. And I didn't try to kill myself because of her specifically. I think she was just that final straw of my love-hate relationship with women as a whole. And it was just that final, like, I'm never going to find a decent human. I was just done. I was only 22 at that time. And it was just that final straw in my life where I was like, I can't do this anymore. Felt like a failure. I just gotten back from Iraq and in Iraq, I felt like I had a purpose, like I had a meaning for life. Yeah. My job out there was a lead gunner, which meant my job was to make sure we didn't get blown up or shot at, or if there were people, my job was to shoot back. And so even though I didn't see a lot of action, I felt like my life had purpose out there. I came home and my purpose was gone. And then I go to this crappy situation with this relationship, and then find out that another woman, yet again, cheated on me. One cheated on me while I was out in Iraq. So I've been with a lot of disloyal women who cheated on me consistently. And I just stopped caring about women at that point. I was just done. And luckily, I took over 120 pills in less than 2 minutes. And I woke up 2 days later in the ICU with machines connected to me, a catheter in me, and coal coming out of me. And I woke up just with this newfound appreciation for life, because the doctors told me that they had no idea if I was going to die. They were just waiting to see if my kidneys were going to fail.
Wow. Yeah, that's heavy, man. I'm glad that people were there to get you the care that you needed, man, like to get you to the hospital. That's, you know, it's amazing. I've heard a number of stories about people actually on this podcast as well that had suicide attempts. And like, I would say, I don't know, a high number of them, 8 out of 10 were guys as a result. Like the final push was because of a girl, you know, like these relationships we get in as men it's, you know, affairs of the heart, as my father always says, are the hardest to overcome and deal with. And yeah, it's really hard to recover from people that you put your faith and trust in that as you said, aren't loyal and end up kind of, you know, screwing you over. But yeah, you know, it's always that's it's crazy. I read a stat somewhere that there's like literally tens of thousands of men per year commit suicide. And I think, what is it? A veteran commit suicide every 22 seconds or 22 minutes or something. I remember that there was like a big campaign around that.
It's 22 veterans every day
22 veterans a day,
kill
right?
themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, that's awful, man.
So crazy statistic is veterans make up for less than 5% of the United States population, but they make up for over 10% of the suicides in the United States.
Wow.
So,
what?
yeah,
Like,
it's insane.
Do you
And
think
what's crazy is one service member takes their own life every 26 hours. That means someone that's currently serving, right?
Wow. I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Do you think that
what
just,
a lot of people don't know? Yeah, what a lot of people don't know is they don't know that out of those soldiers and service members, that means people actively serving in the military that are taking their own life. What they don't realize is that over 90% of them have never seen combat. And so what we think about is if we look at where the military, gets their service members from, it's from poverty-stricken areas, right? Most people don't join the military because their life was great. Most of them join to escape a crappy life.
right?
So you think about the people that are coming from rough backgrounds, and then you're adding the stress and everything that the military adds in. The suicide numbers are obviously going to be high when you're taking people from that area of life.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's a fact. And I guess the other end of it is when they come home, they might lack purpose. They might lack the resources that they need to survive now. Financially, getting a job, having the purpose and meaning, going through the PTSD that they went through, being out in a war zone, trauma. There's a lot of factors that play there. So, hopefully there continues to be conversations like this and people like yourself to go out there and hope and give hope and motivation to those of people that are needing it. So that's quite the life you've led, and you're still a young dude, man. You're still got a lot of scenes left in your play of life, and I think that the commitment you have to be the best man you can be for your children and obviously your wife is a testimonial of your character and your just who you are, man. Like overcoming what you've gone through to have this focus of meaning and purpose and putting things in priority, that it's not about, probably building another 7-figure media empire, but building a strong family unit and taking care of yourself and healing and doing the inner work that is necessary to do the outer work. So, and I'm sure that will all fall into place for you, man. Is there anything you want to kind of touch on before we kind of put a bow on this call here, and where people can kind of reach out and connect with you and follow your journey here?
Oh, sorry. Everything slowed down there for a second. Can you say that last part again?
Oh, did it? I don't know where it stopped. I was just saying that, what part did it stop at? I'll just kind of go back.
It sped up your voice real quick. I just lost the last sentence that you said.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I was just kind of acknowledging you for the inner work that you're doing and the priorities that you're putting on your family to build that strong unit, and everything else will take care of itself. So I was just asking where people can connect with you and take a walk on this journey along with you to see how things go and have a look at what you're working on.
Yeah, if you find me on Facebook, it's This Crazy Journey is the title of the page. But on Facebook, the username, because This Crazy Journey was taken, is One Crazy Journey. So it's facebook.com/One Crazy Journey, and you can follow along as I'm going through this process of overcoming and sharing every step that I'm taking.
Cool, man. Well, I'll have those links below. And I just appreciate you being so open and authentic, which is, we're living in a social media world where people only share the highlights of their life and not the real experiences or challenges of life. And I think that stories like this are very important to show people that everyone deals with struggles and drama and challenges, and there's ways to overcome them, as you just shared here. So thanks for taking the time here today, Andrew. And I really enjoy learning more about you and your story, man. So I appreciate you you coming out and sharing. And we've got the NBA Finals coming up here, Game 5. So I don't know if you're a basketball fan or not, but I'm going to be watching that game of Toronto trying to bring home the championship. So everyone out there, enjoy your day. I'm going to be posting this around Father's Day. So happy Father's Day to the children and fathers out there. And as I said earlier, take the time to really connect with the important people in your life. And if there are things that need to be, one thing I wanted to ask you, I forgot to mention this earlier. Have you ever heard of Landmark Forum, Landmark Education?
No, I have not.
Okay. I'm going to send you a link for that, man. That's something that really, really helped me a long time ago. And you talked about being at the White House. This is something that Obama made all of his staff go through. It's a weekend workshop that's all about basically clearing up your past, overcoming any kind of incomplete relationships or experiences in your life, and really kind of putting them in a place where you can powerfully move forward. It's a really, really heavy kind of counseling therapeutic weekend, but it's a very, very beneficial experience that people go through that need to kind of overcome anything. And this is something that I think everyone needs to do to overcome things like that. So I'll put a link from that below. Landmark Education. It's really good. It's quite affordable as well. But it's really good for people to help reconnect with pieces of their life that are incomplete. So that goes into with everyone having a great, safe Father's Day weekend here. And life is short. Go on and make it a great one. And thanks for tuning in. See you guys again next week for another episode. If this is your first time, go ahead and subscribe. And you can look forward to more great people like Andrew being on the show. So I appreciate you, Andrew. All the best, and take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm just going to wrap this up here.